This is an emergency video from the Baseball Hut. Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut. And this is another visit, and an emergency session of the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny fun.
This video will be going up after the Met game on Saturday. And of course, this is another visit to the insane asylum known as WFAN. I did a video the other day on Friday chronicling the patient and very special individual known as Sal Licata. You know, RFK Jr. is looking into why autism has exploded in this country. They said that one out of every 34 children have the chances of being autistic. I feel bad for the child of Sal Licata because there's a good possibility that his father might be one that is autistic. So Sal might be of the spectrum that's a little slow and very unhinged and angry, to be honest with you. But we talked about this on Friday in the video, or Thursday, whatever it was, Thursday or Friday. I'll get my day straight. Or Thursday. Thursday. What the hell's today? It's all Saturday. Hope everybody's gonna have a good Easter. I know I will. But Sal Licata complained about Juan Soto's sluggish start. We're 18 games into the season, and he got blasted by a lot of people. Mainly Met fans, because the media is making up all kinds of garbage. All kinds of garbage. And we know that Sal is a known liar, and the people at WFAN are liars too. Because when there's pushback, they lie about it, and they backtrack. Let me remind you folks, back in the summer of winter of 2023, there was a big argument with that mid-morning show of Sal Licata and Brandon Tierney with New York Giants legend and linebacker Carl Banks, and they hung up on him because he was pushing back on their negativity, that the negativity is not healthy. Now, WFAN's reputation amongst themselves, amongst the media, is not very good because John Heyman is also at war with WFAN. He refuses to go on after having gotten into it with the DIE hire of Keith McPherson one night during the wintertime over Juan Soto, believe it or not. And there is a great difference of opinion about how the media looks in general to WFAN and their hosts, okay? They're not well liked amongst the general media. They're just not. Because they're very unprofessional and they lie all the time. They're probably the worst liars when it comes to the sports media, believe it or not. But we've gone 18 games into the season, and everybody's had slow starts other than Pete Alonso. Now, I would mention the Mets won on Friday night, a big walk-off, and for some weird reason, Spaz, which I like to say, put this tweet out talking about how it felt like October. But this is also the same guy that said that he would blew the pants off of Juan Soto based on the numbers. Now, I would mention Soto had a big hit in this game in the fifth inning and tied the game up. So it shut him up, and we'll get into this. Let me read you again just to remind you of what, and this is from Awful Announcing. They brought this up. It took 18 games for Sal Licata to start yelling at Juan Soto. Now, Spaz Licata had been complaining that the Mets should get him, and were really just harassing the Mets ownership for over a year to get him. They finally get him. He's a month in, and he's pissing and moaning about the way he's producing. Got to give him time, man. Again, like I said in many videos, it is not easy being a Met player because you got to deal with this insanity. I'm sure he didn't deal with this with the Yankees. This has less to do with the money than it has to do with the name on the front of the jersey. The Mets get no benefit of the doubt. My channel and the Baseball Hut 2 chronicled it for 2 years. The Mets get treated very poorly. I would mention also Chaz Chisholm Jr. A couple of days into the season, they were talking about him being a all-star this year. He's sitting 160 currently. but it is only 3 weeks into the season. He's a career 248 hitter, by the way. WFAN host Sal Licata has had it with Juan Soto and his production with the New York Mets less than a month into his $765 million contract. I read this article, then Spaz did not have a good counter move on Friday. If there's any sports where fans should be patient, it should be baseball. But don't tell that to WFAN host Spaz Licata when it comes to the highest priced player in American professional sports, and Juan Soto. Soto, of course, got a 15-year, $765 million contract from the Mets, the largest in the history of professional sports. And with a contract that size, there will always be outsized expectations when it comes to performance on the field. We understand that, but it's still based on you still have to perform, and you still have to sort of get in your groove. But if Juan Soto does indeed play 15 years with the Mets, sure, the first month of his career will be the smallest tip of the iceberg of his time with the franchise. Baseball is not the NFL. It's not college football, and it's not even the NBA or the NHL. The season lasts 162 games, and what happens in April as players are warming up and getting into a rhythm can be totally different from where their season ultimately ends in September. Now, we have 6 years of play by Juan Soto where we know what he's going to produce. We have a pretty good idea. And he plays every day. He doesn't miss any time. Although keep an eye on that elbow, his left elbow. He had issues with that last year. But he's a guy you know what he's going to do. Okay. But, alas, Spaz Licata is not ready to wait till September or even May when it comes to criticizing Juan Soto. The Sluggers off to a slower start. However, the Mets are on top of the NL East at 12-7 after the walk-off on Friday. And surely their new signing needs some time to acclimate to his new surroundings. All should be okay, right? All should be well, right? Not so fast. According to the Spaz, he didn't offer some gentle encouragement to Soto. The Met fans cheered him vociferously on Friday. He didn't offer a pep talk. He didn't preach patience. He said he had an insane meltdown. Instead, he went on a nuclear level rant that would have you think he was doing as much harm to the franchise as Bobby Bonilla. And of course, I don't need to show you this. You can find this yourself. Let me just read you what what Spaz said. Juan Soto has stunk to start his Mets career. I never thought I would be at this point with Juan Soto, a guy I begged and pleaded the Mets to go get. A guy I wanted more than any player ever in my fandom. You're a fucking idiot. Excuse my language. I wanted Juan Soto. I would mention that thing where he sort of whispers his name creepily. Don't be a creep. It was creepy. The Mets delivered, and every single time this guy has come up in a big spot this year, and there has been plenty, he has failed. And yesterday, despicable 0 for 5, 3 strikeouts, leaving a small village on the base pass. The Mets lose a series. You don't pay him that money to a guy who gets on base for it. Let me tell you something, Spaz. He's going to get on 40% of the time. That's his game. He's the modern-day Ted Williams. Bull crap. Every single time he's come up in a big spot, he has failed. He did not do that with the Yankees. Every player has a slump. I'm sure he had a slump last year. But it never gets highlighted because he's with the Yankees. Now, on Friday, there was pushback. Okay? And Spaz basically said that, the Met fans coming out saying that Pete Alonso's now an MVP candidate after 18 games, so I should be allowed to criticize Soto. Nobody, no fan has said that, Spaz. Not one single Met fan I've seen has mentioned the MVP with Pete Alonso. The only people that have talked about it are your friends in the media, your co-workers at SNY. John Harper was talking about it the other day on Baseball Night in New York. Okay? No fans are talking about him being an MVP candidate 3 weeks into the season. The only morons that talk about that are people in your profession. Okay? John Harper, who, by the way, wrote one of the worst books, one of the most disgusting books on the New York Mets back in the 90s that did not help the situation here. Made things worse. Him and his Popeye-eyed friend, Bob Clappish. Sorry. But the two of them wrote a disgusting book about the worst team money could buy. And these guys have been living off that nonsense for 30 years. Okay? Because they weren't the 86 Mets. We know the team was bad. But I don't want to get into it. I would mention, I wonder if John Harper can do anything without having any article about anything that he writes about him talk to a scout first. But again, the media is the one that brought up the MVP talk. Met fans have not talked about that. I would also mention this. Met fans love Pete Alonso. They love Juan Soto. You tried to run Pete Alonso out of here for 2 years. You failed. And he's not going anywhere. He's going to be a Met forever. He's going to be a Met the rest of his career. And Soto's not going anywhere. So stop trying to cause trouble when there is no trouble. Most reasonable Met fans know that it's only 18, 19 games. Chill the F out. Are you so like insecure, Spaz, about your horrible program that you have with the coconut head, that you have to cause all this trouble? You must be. You must be. Or maybe they just hire you because you're on the spectrum. I pray to God we find out why so many children and someone like yourself have these issues. Your host doesn't have those problems. Thank God. Thank God. But anyway. And this is another visit to the... This is another visit and an emergency visit to the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny fun.
This is an emergency video from the baseball hut.